Hello, G fans. Steve Blankard here again, and with another update on the D18 transfer case. It's Tuesday afternoon, and I got to come clean. I got to tell you the truth here. I had a problem with the transfer case. The last video I showed you a few days ago, I had it all buttoned up, and it was all, I was pretty happy with how things looked, and thinking it was ready to go, just waiting on the intermediate shaft. Well, here's what happened. I started looking closely at it, and I was turning it, and I noticed that the speedometer drive gear was not moving, and that is right here. When you move that drum, that little gear inside there should be turning. That's what drives your speedometer. Well, it wasn't moving. So I realized something was wrong here, and so I had to take it back apart and figure out what was going on. And so I've got some other parts from a second transfer case I laid out here to kind of show you. I've already got it all put back together, and I think I got it resolved. So I'll show you what I did. So this is the output shaft here. Hold on, getting this at an angle where you can see it. This is another output shaft. This is the speedometer drive gear. And this is what drives the driven gear, and this one engages like this, and this is what wasn't turning. Well, this fits onto the output shaft, and the only thing that holds this in place is the companion shaft going on, and with the nut, I hope I'm getting this, with the nut and washer, when this is really tightened up, the companion shaft, companion flange here, just clamps that speedometer gear against that shoulder. Or against the bearing that's on there. So it clamps it between the two, and then that will turn with the shaft, which in turn drives the little driven gear. Well, what happened was on mine, because I had to mix some parts here, I had to get the correct CJ2A speedometer drive gear and driven gear. This is a 4-tooth and a 15-tooth. I didn't have these, so I had to get them from somebody else. And so I kind of had mix match parts, and what I found out is there are different lengths of these drive gears. There's a couple variations in the length of them, and there's two different lengths of companion shafts. So if you're taking your transfer case apart and your speedometer worked, you should be okay. But if you're mixing parts, or if you get a new companion flange, you got to make sure that when you tighten this nut up on the end of the shaft, that it's not, the end of the splines are not bottoming out against the washer here. There's got to be enough so it'll clamp it. So it'll clamp that speedometer gear good and tight on there. So to solve this, I found out that there are, on a Dana 20 transfer case, they make shims for going on this gear, and that's how they set the output shaft end plate. At least that's what I've been told. So I went ahead and ordered some of those shims, but I found it was going to take a couple of weeks to get them. And being a rather impatient guy, I decided to make my own. So on the way from home from work today, I stopped and I picked up some machine bushings. And this is a couple of them here. And so this is a 1 1/8 inch bore, which fits right on the shaft nicely. But it was too big on the outside diameter, so I put one in the lathe, and I turned the outside diameter down from 1 3/4 down to 1 1/2, so it fit nicely about the same height as the speedometer gear. And this is 81 thousandths thick. So I reassembled the transfer case with that bushing on the end like this here. Hope you can see this. With this bushing, and that made up the gap that I was having, spaced the companion flange out enough so when I tightened the nut, it clamped the gear nicely, and now the driven gear works. So just to guess a bit of warning here, if you're working on one of these and if you're mixing parts, just make sure that your companion flange will clamp that speedometer gear so it turns properly. And then you'll be fine. I didn't realize that there was a difference in the lengths, and as a result, I put it all put together, and the speedometer gear didn't turn. And then when I took it apart and did some measurements, I found that it was about 10 thousandths or so short. I had that much of a gap in there, and that's why it wasn't clamping it. So by making a bushing to take up that distance, it tightens up nicely now. I've got it tightened up in here, and it's working well. So I think I'm going to be okay. So Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that if you're working on your own, if you run into that kind of thing, it could be a problem. So it's just another thing to look out for. And like I've said before, this is my first time rebuilding one of these transfer cases, so I'm learning a lot along the way and making mistakes. But I wanted to come clean and tell you what happened here, so you'll know to look for it when you do yours. So, okay, that's it for tonight. Talk to y'all later.